I spent a week in quarantine and fortunately experienced only mild symptoms. I think that's because I was fully vaccinated and boosted, and I was glad to have the help of modern science on my side. Well, there's never a good time to be away from our work here in the Senate, but we all have a responsibility to keep those around us safe as well, no matter how inconvenient. Unfortunately, there are reports that our friends across the aisle.
Senate Democrats are walking on eggshells around Kyrsten Sinema. They are crossing their fingers that she will agree to support a sweeping tax reform and climate bill, and the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Manchin announced this weekend. Sinema was left out of the state's negotiations between Manchin and Schumer, though she played a large role in crafting a prescription reform bill that will be included in a budget reconciliation package, along with the tax and climate provisions. The good news is that Sinema has already expressed her support for setting a 15% corporate minimum tax for companies that earn more than $1 billion of profits, a centerpiece for the deal that will raise $313 billion. However, the question is whether she'll come to the agreement on the carried interest tax loophole that allows managers to pay only a 20% capital gains tax rate on income earned from managing profitable investments. Closing the loophole will raise an estimated $14 billion over 10 years. Sinema last year opposed changing it. A Democratic senator who attended the session noted that it is not unusual for Sinema to miss caucus meetings. A spokesperson for Sinema said that she's reviewing the text and we need to see what comes out of the parliamentarian process. Sinema has already left a mark on the bill by saying early during last year's negotiations that she would not support raising marginal tax rates for individuals or raising the corporate tax rate above its current level of 21%. Another key measure of inflation set a fresh 40-year high in June, a month marked by record high gas prices. The Personal Consumer Expenditures Price Index, which measures the change in the price of goods and services purchased by consumers, rose by 6.8% in June, as compared to the same period last year. According to data released by the Bureau of Economic Analysis, that surpasses the 40-year high of 6.6% in March of this year and falls just shy of the 6.9% year-over-year rate noticed in January 1982. Understandably, consumers are not feeling that great about the economy right now, especially the high rate of inflation. As index of consumer sentiment during July measured 51%. That settles in above the all-time low of 50 that was set in June. Consumers in July that were surveyed expect that median inflation will land at 5.2% during next year and around 2.9% in the next 5 years. Schumer and Manchin's new bill is currently known as the Inflation Reduction Act, and White House economic advisors said the deal brings huge opportunities for investment to the economy.
Check. Green New Deal climate policies that would hurt our energy security and drive energy costs through the roof. Taxpayer subsidies for wealthy people buying expensive cars and SUVs. I was listening to the Majority Whip, the senator from Illinois, talking about these businesses that are making too much money, and so they need to pay more in taxes. Now that's what I've come to expect from our Democratic colleagues. They're kind of a Robin Hood party, take from the rich, give to the poor, except here, this is a reverse Robin Hood. They're taking from middle-class families who can't afford to buy expensive electric vehicles and giving a tax subsidy to wealthy people who can afford to buy them but are helped with a $7,500 taxpayer subsidy. So you might call that a reverse Robin Hood. Then they want to supersize the Internal Revenue Service with even more manpower and authority to track everyday American people and perform, I presume, many, many more audits, not just on the rich and famous, but also on middle-class Americans. And then there are the special handouts to powerful friends of the Democratic Party. This isn't the type of legislation that will bring our economy roaring back to life or cool inflation. In fact, that is the first place that this bill is misrepresented. To call it an Inflation Reduction Act when nobody believes in the near term it's going to have a single impact at all on inflation. That's what Penn Wharton said for the next 2 years. They said it may actually make inflation worse, but it's a negligible amount. But the one thing we're sure of is it sure won't go down. So it's not an Inflation Reduction Act. It's really an insult to the intelligence of the American people to think that you can spend this money and you can tax individuals and businesses during a recession, something everybody from Bill Clinton to Barack Obama to Chuck Schumer to Joe Manchin has said you don't do, which is raise taxes during a recession. But that's exactly what this bill does. Higher taxes, bigger.
Eligible families will be provided with monthly payments of $350 for each child under the age of 6 and $250 for each older child until age 17. Now this is similar to a child tax credit, which actually gave families $300 a month for children under 6 and $250 for children between 6 and 17. The bill is now being negotiated on by both sides of Congress, and we could see big action being taken by Congress this year. So, the qualified families with a single tax filer must make less than $200,000, and joint filers must make less than $400,000. It has been received that while most families will receive the full benefits, households who made more than the requirements could also benefit from Romney's proposal. Apparently, single filers or joint filers earning more will receive $50 or less for every $1,000 earned above the thresholds. Now, Romney said this plan would actually renew our commitment to families to help them meet challenges that they face. But the Build Back Better plan for the expanded child tax credit proposed making the child tax credit fully refundable, which means that families with little to no earnings would actually still qualify for the benefit. Prior to the implementation of the expanded child tax credit, the credit phased in at 15% of earnings over $2,500, based on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So I hope that President Biden can definitely do something about the fourth stimulus check and Social Security benefits. I believe he needs to do more for the American people. Now, if you guys agree, tell me in the comments down below.
They're independent. I believe that inflation is our top economic challenge right now, and I think they do too. We've built a strong economy with a strong job market. And I agree with what Chairman Powell said last week, that the number one threat is the strength, and that strength that we built is inflation. So the Fed should do its job, and it will do its job, I'm convinced, with that in mind. Now, as I said when I came to what Congress and the President can do to fight inflation, Americans have two potential paths forward. The first is my plan, the Democratic plan. Plan put forward by congressional Republicans is a second alternative. Here's how each of us would tackle inflation. My plan is to lower everyday costs for hardworking Americans, and lower the deficit by asking large corporations and the wealthiest Americans to not engage in price gouging and to pay their fair share in taxes.